So inshallah, what we're going to do today, so it's basically with both groups that we are, very much so with the new fresh group. What we did basically, we tried to provide the summary of what we covered for the whole semester in terms of what is the problem, what is the Nursian approach, and then what is the solution. But we did not cover anything about the model, that 5D thinking model. So what we're going to do, so we're going to cover the model, okay, since it's there for them, it's, it's a last opportunity for that. So basically we thought it would be good that we're going to start and talk about the model. But for our regular group, we're going to have more discussion. We have one more lecture that will be on Saturday. So we're going to talk about the curriculum designs and overall education things in addition to what we already discussed. Okay, so it's basically the whole objective is to try to, remember we would discuss the problem, we look at the concept. So the key part here, what is the solution? How can we get, a practical model that we can use it to integrate knowledge, to rebuild the knowledge. That's really the whole point. So in this case, we try to see, we came up with a model we call the 5D thinking model, 5-dimensional thinking model. So, so we're going to explain to you what it is, what are the components, and how we use them. So essentially, that is about, so the reason, remember we mentioned the problem with the secular worldview is a 4-dimensional, which basically means it does not recognize the metaphysical or angelic dimension, which means that is the dimension in which that God is actually directly creating and causing everything. So, and therefore, ironically, it's really very interesting. When we came up with our model, we call 5D, we didn't really know that eventually the 5D is all about the 5th dimension. But it turned out to be, as we work on it, that is all about bringing the 5th dimension into the existing 4 dimension. So it worked very, very well in this regard. That's one thing. That's the reason we think that this is in one way. When we started first, we actually start with 7 dimensions. Then so we had a lot of review and discussions. The idea was really simple is always better. So it's actually even in science they say that when you have 2 competing hypotheses, the one that's simpler is more likely to be accurate. Okay, so that's because the hikmah requires to always do and use the least resources, not wasting that. So and therefore, if there's something could be simple, it's better to go simple and not go to make it complicated. Therefore, we reduce to the 5 dimension. Again, maybe it could be even more simpler, but we think that's, as of now, it's simple enough to understand. So the other things is about the thinking. So we put the thinking at the center of the model because of our understanding of the learning, because we define learning as a constructive process, which means that it's not something that you're going to go and preach to people and have them to embrace. It's something they have to build themselves, construct themselves. So in this case, the whole model is to really, rather than give them the true answer and say, here's the answer, get it, memorize, believe in it, we say, okay, let's come work together. Let's you build your own understanding. Let's you reach your own conclusion. So in other words, in our writing, in our model, we never start with God. We never start with ayah and hadith because we don't want to impose anything on anyone. We say, come, let's try to think together. And as we think through, so in a 4th dimension, that you will start to really connect the dot and see the connection there. So when we look at the thinking part, so on the thinking part, it's really, there are a lot of verses in Quran on thinking, a lot of verses. And this is just an example. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا تَتَفَكَّرُونَ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَفَكَّرُونَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ بِآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. There are different versions. You have to really pay attention what's it, because when it says أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ is about, well, don't you reason, aql. When it says أَفَلَا تَفَكَّرُونَ is about contemplation. One is about reasoning, one about contemplation. when it says لعلهم يتفكرون لآيات لقوم يتفكرون, or the emphasis is a qawm, which means that you talk about the community. You're talking about the team of thinking together, like in a way that we are basically thinking together. It's not individual thinking, which means there's something here you cannot capture, you cannot get it alone. You really need help from the others to think that. So, but essentially, among all of the verses in the Quran on the thinking, our favorite one we use as a motto for our model is the one in green. It says that, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Inna sharra dawabi indallah, the worst moving creatures in the eyes of Allah, thummun bukmun alladhina la ya'qilun. So, the worst creatures in the eyes of Allah is the one that who do not listen, who do not speak, and who do not think. Who do not speak the truth and who do not think. Now, reverse it. What is the best creature in the eyes of Allah in this case? So first it says listen. Why? It's actually in another ayah as well, like in the Baqarah as well. Summun almost always come first. Like summun, ummun. Remember those that is being blind, right? So Allah doesn't like those who. First it says that. Why? What I actually understood, it means like, are you really willing to hear even? Are you interested in the subject? Do you want to really know? If you don't, then nothing can help because if you're not really willing to learn something, no one can give you anything. So, and therefore there has to be willingness, the desire to learn, to explore. And so that's the reason it says that basically if you close the door, like how, you say, I'm busy, this is not important for me, I don't really care, which means you're not willing to hear, which means you're like a deaf person. And that's the reason that Quran says here that Allah doesn't like those who close their ears to the exploration, to things. So the second one is bukmun. That means if you don't speak, which means that if you speak, Allah loves you. If you don't speak the truth you have, Allah doesn't like that as well. The third one, it says, if you don't, الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ, it means that if you don't think, so in this case, if you actually, means the opposite, if you think that Allah will love you more. So in this case, basically, in our model is all about thinking. But first, what we think the Tawheedi paradigms is a holistic one, which requires a system thinking. The system thinking is basically a type of thinking that you need to look at the whole to understand the part. The whole is more than the part. So you need to look at it in a holistic way, which means that don't reduce to the part, don't try to get understanding of the whole from the part. So the system thinking put a lot of emphasis on the holistic way of looking at. So this is, we think in terms of overall curriculum and model, that's what we really have as system thinking. But in terms of our methodology, the 5D thinking is a model of how to practically integrate knowledge or extract knowledge at the subject level. Okay, so in this case, it's practical level to really extract that. So, and it composed of 5 dimensions: analytical thinking, analogical thinking, critical thinking, meditative thinking, and moral thinking. Okay, so again, it's basically it is based on the Ma'na Harfi that we all discussed, and it's again it is a way of reading the creation in the name of God and see reflection of God in everything. We say it's not eclectic, means we're not adding anything, we're extracting something from the existing one. So we see most of integration or Islamization is actually adding something, that you add the ayah and hadith, now you become Islamic. We say you don't need to add anything because it's already there, just extract from that. You have biology, you have physics, you have chemistry, you can look at this and you can extract from that. So that is what we think you could do that. So again, it is then we try to look at the meaning dimension, because the science only look at, if you remember, ismi dimension, that we try to basically get that, and then it's all about connecting everything to the Creator, because we see the problem is this connection, which means all the road always go to God. Everything you study, everything happened to you, they all, in a way, basically means of connection and communication between you and Creator. So, in one way, actually, if when we truly get into the model assumes that there is nothing you and God. Everything else is just a means of communication between you and Creator. So, and therefore, it's extremely God-centric model, in which that we try to really see how you can put God at the center of everything. Every event, every object, everything in your life, in society, in history, in the nature, whatever. So, and that's very, in this regard, God-centric way. Now, again, the problem that we define, science comes with secular ideology, but we know concept of God and the character. So, and therefore it produces excellence, but without soul. It makes people to be either animal or robots. It's really no real human being. And our solution is, we say we need to integrate God, science, character all together, but we need to filter the secular ideology. And then, as a result, you will have excellence with faith and good characters. So you still have excellence, you're still going to be a good engineer, good scientist. Actually, we argue you could be better, because you will have more reason, better, higher enthusiasm to study, because you're not going to study only for the job, you're going to study also for the ma'rifah, to get connected to the Creator. So again, those are the dimensions. We're going to go over each one of them, in detail. And basically, analytical is a scientific way of looking evidence-based knowledge. So we think that science is really excellent tool in terms of empirical observational data. So in this case, that we think rather than negating or rejecting science, we have to embrace that. It's very good. Scientific methodology is excellent to understand the ismi dimension. Okay, so and therefore we get the scientific knowledge, and we try to have the student to think in a scientific way rather than my opinion, your opinion. So then we try to build on that one. The second one, analogical thinking. So essentially this is because of concept of ana. Remember that analogy is all based on ana, because our model is ana-based epistemology. How can you relate everything to yourself and know based on that one? So in this case, every subject we cover, we try to find analogy for that. Like, you try to teach brain, what is the analogy for the brain? Oh, computer or network of computer. You're teaching eyes, what is the analogy for the eyes? Or the camera? See, so in this case, what we do, our analogy always has to be what we call so-called man-made. In reality, there is no man-made, by the way. When you reach to the real tawheed, everything is a God-made. Even an airplane is a God-made, okay? Because human can only discover, cannot invent anything. But what appears to us, that it seems like human doing something. So the reason we get the man-made one, because through your experience that what it takes to make them. When you get the camera out there and you have experience of building camera, so that experience will help you to appreciate what the eyes looks like and how you should appreciate the eyes. So therefore, we use always analogy. Now, critical thinking, so we truly encourage that. We think critical thinking is something that is absolutely necessary. Our hero in Quran, who is really the greatest critical thinker in the Quran? Prophet Ibrahim, actually. How do you remember his story?
Yes, about the moon and sun.
No, the most famous one is the plot that he had it all these idols that he broke them down, right? See, that was basically an amazing setting to have them to engage in critical thinking. and say, look, use your mind. Remember I told you about Atatürk? See, I mean, if Prophet Ibrahim were here, we're going to actually go and try to set something and make people to think, because how dumb that you spend that much money on something that absolutely nonsense, right? And you try to go and expect something from the dead body. What is that, yani?
Yes.
So in that case, basically, critical thinking is absolutely necessary. So our argument here, in modern education, they do emphasize critical thinking, but we say they don't do enough. Why? Because they don't go enough to really identify the embedded ideology. Okay? So we try to see, Narisha, can you open some of those windows? I think we close all of them.
Start feeling stuffy.
Yeah, just because otherwise everyone's gonna either suffocate or just fall asleep. Yeah, you can. Yeah, and also there's one there at this corner.
Thank you.
Because I think there's some, it's because of the weather, the humidity, but at least if there is a circulation of air, then yeah, you can open that as well. I think there's no smoke now. See? That is analytical thinking. Wow. In other words, you cannot say just, we're doing great thing, therefore ignore, the setting, right?
Yes.
Because there is a certain way that Allah actually does the work, so you have to recognize and obey that. So you cannot ignore the importance of the Ismi dimension. So the Ismi dimension is all about, what are the established order in the universe, and how I'm going to use this one and ask something from Allah. So because you cannot go against that, okay? So it's basically, if you close everywhere and get hot, then you're going to make people to fall asleep, because that's just the fitra. So critical thinking, our objective, essentially, to have people to engage in critical thinking to negate the cause, nature, and chance. So in a way, we say this is a La ilaha part of Tawheed, Shahada. So La ilaha, in a sense that how do you know that nature, chance, and cause cannot be the source? That we do in a critical thinking. Now, once we do that, so in other words, we first eliminate the false choices. Then meditative thinking, we don't start. One of the things we struggle, those who are in our team, when they do the writing, once they are done with critical thinking, they start to inject the ayah at the very beginning of meditative thinking. Oh, now here is Allah. That's what this is. Since the eyes cannot be the work of nature and chance, that means Allah. And I said, how do you know that? Just because you prove it or you make the case that nature or chance or cause is not the source, that does not necessarily says that God is the source. You need to make the case and have them to conclude that indeed this can only be the work of God. Like if we prove it, none of us here make the camera, that doesn't mean God made the camera. So you need to show why you think that camera is God made, not, let's say, made by anyone else. Okay? So in that case, in meditative thinking, the way we do in the two approach we use it. One is we point to the interconnectivity in terms of everything's rely on everything else. Which means the way the universe is created, to get one single apple, you need to have almost the entire universe to work together to give you a single apple. And that basically means everything is connected to everything else. Like you say, how? Yeah, I'll say, because the apple, you need to have a seed, you have the soil, you need to have the sun, you need to have the other planet, you need to have the other stars. They have to all support each other. Depending on your knowledge level, at quantum level, you can say the particles are connected. So in that case, we try to say it's like the way that the creation work is very holistic. Everything's connected to each other. So if everything's connected to each other, it means that to create a single apple, you have to create the entire universe. Which means you have to have infinite power. And by definition, there can be only one infinite power, not two. So that is our things. Our point here is that we point to interconnectivity, make the case that it requires infinite power, and then we say that's what we call it God. So God is the name of our understanding that it become clear to us. This takes infinite power or infinite knowledge, and infinite knowledge and power can only be one, and that's what we call it God. Okay? So it will be a conclusion. The second things we do, the Quran does very clearly, we point in terms of the interconnectivity, in terms of the benefit. How some things is helping the other as if they care about each other. But since they don't have any mind, any emotion, obviously there is someone else who knows and take care of them. How do plants know we need oxygen? They actually come up with the way to produce oxygen and happen to be perfectly helpful for us. So in this case, the Quran used the word sakhara, musakhara. So which means that everything, it seems like serving everything as. But they don't have consciousness. They don't know the need of others. And they don't have emotion of care why they should help the other. Which means it's not them helping. Which means there's someone who create everything to intentionally make them to help the other. So those are two things that we use to actually make the case in meditative. Then after that we say that means this is God behind the veil doing all this work. Yes?
And hocam, in Surah Al-Nahl, it is used, revealed, you know. Allah revealed the being, so the wahi is used as the word. So I think it tells something really, really important. That behind the wheel is
Yes.
the wahi.
Because
Surah teaches.
correct. But that's, remember when Nursi has the interpretation of that, he says that everyone has the wahi.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Actually.
So or not has a ilham.
Yeah. Kind of.
So in a way that basically means, you know, this one, what we get it is basically it means everything, knowledge is also the sources from God.
Yeah.
So it's not like I have the mind. What is your mind? Your mind is just the food that you eat. The brain is the food that you eat. How come the brain can come up with a certain idea? So the source of knowledge is not the brain. But then what is the source of knowledge?
So Quran directly addresses that to wahi coming only from the creator of the universe.
Yes.
It cannot be by themselves or from themselves and their knowledge, power, whatever it is.
No, because when you study the bees, so you see that basically the bees do certain action and as if they have a knowledge of what to do because they go and collect the nectar. And so when the Quran says that, saying that basically don't give it to their brain or their material things or no, like remember when they look the migrating bird as well, what they say? When they look at the migrating bird, that they can migrate for thousands of miles in a very short time and go and find the right place. What do they say, secular people? Well, they say, oh, it seems like it has GPS. It's complete makeup. Why? Because they don't believe there could be a source of knowledge coming from God. Because they have to find some things, physically to link to them. So they say, oh, it's connected to the magnet, it's connected to, they kind of, have the brain, they can recognize that. So that is to basically deny it could be from God.
Prof,
Yes.
I have two questions.
Yes.
Before we go further, go back to the earlier slide. You mentioned, maybe I heard it wrongly from you. Do you remove secular ideology or filter secular ideology? Because you use filter just now.
Yeah, filter means you remove it.
Remove or
Yeah,
filter?
remove
I
it,
thought
yeah,
filter you need
No.
to select.
No, you remove it.
Remove
Secular
it.
ideology, you remove it. But the easy part, the easy way to catch it, actually we do sometimes practice. We give you a textbook. Bring any textbook.
Mm-hmm.
Read that. You cannot almost have any single page without this embedded ideology. But most people, if you give them, you say identify the secular ideology, they will look at nature, mother nature, or evolution, or they look at those kind of things. But this is actually very explicit one. The key part is to find the implicit one. Because the implicit one here, like remember with your group we did with right in the morning, the bee example?
Yes.
So when we ask, how do you see honey? What is the source of honey? If you say, honey is actually come from bee and Allah create bee in an amazing way that the honey, bee makes the honey. Is this correct?
Produce me.
If you say, see, there is no way for, but it was actually, we had discussion in the morning. What was that? What was
Yes.
the thing? Do you remember that? Can we say that Allah created the honeybee as a machine that can produce honey?
Yes, that it is the source, or this is what we were discussing.
Huh? Yes.
Is bee honey is creating honey, or this is what we said.
So basically, the point was that honey, does it come from honeybee?
Yes, this one.
Does it come from honeybee?
No.
No. It comes
From the
with
frog.
honeybee. It doesn't come from honeybees. Why? Because Allah created the honey and Allah created the honeybees. Allah created a tree and Allah created fruit. The fruit does not come from the tree. And to think they come from each other is actually thinking that the material cause is the cause of the fact. And this is a secular ideology, and this ideology is in the mind of almost every Muslims as well.
Yes.
The only difference is that they will say, oh, Allah created the tree in an amazing way and the tree produces a fruit. Oh, Allah created, I remember once I read it, this was Bir Arn'ın Hatıra Defteri, right? That's in Turkish. It's like an amazing book and talks about the bees. And it makes you to really be amazed. But then it says that, oh, this amazing bees makes a honey. Thanks to God that He creates such bees which makes honey for you. I say, no, it's absolutely wrong. It's wrong because if you see that honey bee is making honey, then you don't directly give the honey to the creator. But if you see that God is the creator of everything, then now you connect everything to the creator. And you have every reason to be thankful to the creator. Then now you can say, look, you can never talk about honey and honeybee without talking about creator, because honeybee cannot make honey. Now, but if you say honeybees can make honey, we can explain it, then you say we don't need to talk about God. We need to bring the God when we talk about the origin of the honeybees. That's all. Because everything is just self-sustaining cause and effect that established at the beginning by the creator just continue. But that is not the God of Quran. The God in Quran is the God of everything there is. He is the only cause. So the honeybee is not the cause of the honey. God is the cause of the honey. But honeybee always come with the...
I remember you used the term vehicle. The vehicle, the honey is a vehicle. And the tree is a vehicle. And it stuck with me. By which they are...
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the second question is, when we want to have this teaching model, it's like I'm trying to be a listener like this in this situation. So it's very simple. When the student may say, okay, then so all answer is comes from Allah. So they will take it an easier way of making it short when we teach. Okay, but how did it come from? Where did it come from? Allah. So that how can we boost the analytical process?
I see. That's a very good question. So she's saying that you might kill their interest.
Yeah,
in learning.
exactly.
Yeah, it's basically, everything's come from Allah, but it's basically Allah, the way that He creates, He wants to give us some lesson. He wants to show us some things. That's first thing. Second is that Allah actually established certain system. He says that unless you use my way, I will never give what you wanted. So in other words, you cannot say, Allah created everything, therefore I'm not going to go and plant the seed, I'm going to make dua and Allah going to give me fruits. Allah, you never see something like this in Islam. So why you have to go and plant it? Since Allah created, Allah can give you without planting them. Allah says, this is my way, this is my sharia takwiniya, this is the way I create. If you want anything from me, you have to go through that. Now if you say why He made it that way, there's a reason for this as well. Because in the Jannah, there is no such way. In the Jannah, whatever you want, it come right away, right? But imagine in dunya as well, it was like this. Anything you want, it just appear. What will happen?
Nobody is working.
No, who cares? You don't need to work. Why you need to work?
Yeah.
In Jannah, you're not going to work anyway, right?
Yeah.
But what will happen if everything appear right away? It will be almost impossible for people, because that means you will understand the qudra only, you will never understand the ilm. You don't understand how the creation happened. You will just name it, you say, the law of coming from nothingness, period, finish. But once you see the process and you experience this process, remember, you have to do something. So in other words, you have to go, some food come ready, but some you have to go and cook it. You have to go and prepare it. But Allah could have prepared, sent all food ready like a banana, right? The banana comes as very ready dessert. Allah could have created a cake, could have created, you know, all kind of food is ready, right? Why He didn't do? Because He wants us to go through the experience to understand.
The knowledge.
So then you say, when you go through that, you say, yes, I understand. This can't happen by itself. So for that reason, it's absolutely necessary to study and experience. And actually, the whole life experience is just because of that. So the reason that we do something, we go through something, that we're supposed to really reflect on that and to reach it, to find God. But if we did not have such experience, it would be very difficult to really understand God's and God's attributes.
So it's like, then there's a big and huge difference, like saying behind everything there is Allah, just like Sister said, oh, it's Allah, and when a child says, oh, it's Allah. It's a very big difference between saying in that way and saying in this way, like, I see this, I study this, and I contemplate upon this, and therefore I deduct this result, and therefore I deduct there's only one God.
Yeah.
And then that takes me, I bear witness, there's no God but Allah.
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference between
Absolutely.
and there's a whole life, as you said, about
The Quran actually, remember, does anyone remember the ayah about the camel?
Yes.
What's that?
أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت.
See? أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت. Does كيف خلق means how it's created.
How He's created.
So how it's created means you have to study how it's created.
Exactly.
See, it's and then what was the
وإلى الجبال
see
The
كيف
mountain.
وإلى السماء
كيف رفعت.
see
بنية لو في آية
no, in all those 4 ayah, one thing is repeated in every single of them. كيف 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 سُتِحت, right? كيف خلقت. So which basically means that كيف means how. How does it happen? Remember when we discussed science, we said the science can only answer which question?
كيف.
We said science can only answer what, why, how. Which question science can answer? We said?
Why?
We said only science can explain what question.
What?
Science is descriptive.
I did
Even
why.
how question you cannot answer without God. So therefore the Quran says, Kayfa is how question. How is camels being created? You can never understand until you actually look the connection and see with the God. So in other words, it's not like, oh, everything's work of God. It's not that way actually. How God is doing that? Let's see that. Then you can understand the manifested names of God and you can appreciate the blessing of God.
So I think, based on your answer just now, I agree. But I think as teachers, educators, we need to give them some work prior to the class session in which they need to do the cave process. So when they come to the class, it's not, we will not directly to the answer. So they have to really tell the story, how they come into the decision, maybe their findings about that homework, we call it homework, before they come to the class. So it will make it more interesting. So they will find it themselves. It's not us telling them.
Correct. That's exactly, you'll see what we try to do. So in a way, the good thing is that scientists are helping us a lot. Why? Because what they try to do, they try to reveal the works of Allah. Okay? But they just don't know how to explain that because they don't understand it. So therefore what we do in an analytical one, we give scientific explanation and we put the fascinating facts, fascinating scientific fact. Because our whole point is that to really make them to be amazed with that. Then you get them to think, so how this can happen? Can it this happen just by itself? Can it this be the work of just random chance? Can it be work of, a blind nature? So that's, you try to have them to question. That's what we do.
And I think this one, this modeling is quite applicable make it practical. You know?
Yeah, we need to.
So again,
Very fitting.
yeah, so therefore it's really what we see most of the time, we try to give our answers to others and have them to memorize. But in our model, we want learners to get their own answers. You come up with your answer. Because the reason is that has to be built by yourself. We can't really teach you anything. Because we use it, Socrates' famous phrase, he says, I can't teach anybody anything, I can only make them think. So basically what we try to do is say, okay, we can only make you think. Now at the end, we'll make you to walk through, you will see it, but you will accept or not accept, we cannot do anything on this as well. It's your choice ultimately. But we can make you to walk through. So finally, is moral thinking. And moral thinking dimension is basically, we try to see how we can drive certain moral and character lessons. Because, why? Because what is the purpose of education? What's the purpose of life? It to become better and better and better. Life is all becoming. And becoming means that you have to always look for a way to improve. And remember when the hadith says that if your 2 days is equals that you are in loss, which means that you need to look at the life and every day is how I can be today better than yesterday. So in that case, anything you learn, how can I actually use this one to improve myself? So in this case, we say that knowledge is burden if really it doesn't help you to develop yourself. So therefore, the moral thinking dimension, we think that the current education system is all about technical skill and excellence to go and to just increase money, make more money. Here, we say no, your primary objective to improve yourself more. How can you become better human being? And no matter what you do, you can always find a room for improvement. So again, this is basically the ayah mentioned. That is our model 5 dimension. So we kind of use this ayah as a motto. And this is also, we use the Socrates phrase, Socratic words, we cannot teach anyone anything, we can only make them think. So if you deal with education,
yes.
Bloom's taxonomy is very famous.
Yes.
So essentially in our model, we try to push toward a higher level of thinking. But, I changed this create because, in the book you will see that I use that, but I changed create is very secular. It's only God can create. But I copied this one from Bloom's taxonomy. What would you put it instead of create there? Because the Bloom's taxonomy says that against the lower level of thinking is remembering, memorizing, then understanding, then applying, then analyzing, then evaluating. Then it says creating. I dislike the word of creating for human being because Quran says that only God can create. أَفَمَنْ يَخْلُقُ كَمَنْ لَا يَخْلُقُ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. The one who creates, can it be equal to the one who cannot create? Which basically means that the creation belongs to God alone. Okay? So, what would you replace for creative?
Innovate.
Innovate. Yes, close.
Invention.
I put invent. I put invent. You can invent, you can discover, but to make it easy, evaluate, invent. I put an invent. I dislike create. Because I said this create is a secular concept. But you can see that basically the model is aiming to take you toward a higher level of thinking. So, and basically as you move toward after that, Bloom's will taxonomy argue that the deep learning will happen. Then you really understand that. So again, the model is very integrative, which means you look at it in holistic way rather than reductionism. Reductionism means that you reduce humans to the organs, to the part. Holistic means that you study the whole body as a whole and one piece. So we think that the whole universe is always united. Everything is connected to everything else. Nursi used an amazing phrase to express this. He says that, do you remember that? Kainat öyle bir kül ve küllidir ki hiçbir tecezzi kabul etmez. He says that the universe is connected in a way, in extreme way, as if it is only one thing that you cannot separate even a single thing from the whole. Which means you cannot even get one single atoms and say, oh, this atom can exist without the universe, because the whole universe is interconnected. Yeah. So in this case, it's like The best example is the body. In the body, you have 70 trillion cells, but you never feel you have 70 trillion cells. You have one body. But why? Because the body is created in a way there is extreme level of unity in the body, and therefore, when we try to refer to teamwork in what we say work like a single body. Why? Or because single body is extremely exemplary teamwork. Okay, so
also related to diagnosis, continue to say like whoever creates the stomach of the insect is the one who creates the system of the galaxies.
Yeah.
Because you cannot take anything off from the
Because-
system.
because they're connected to each other.
So either accept one God, he says, or accept innumerable gods
Yeah.
as numbers of the creation.
Yeah, interconnectivity. We emphasize this in a meditative thinking dimension. Like one example we give this. Like how how human is connected to the stars? Or we say, look, you as a human body, you need to have the circulation of oxygen. To carry the oxygen in the body, what do you need? You need iron. Oh, okay. Where did the iron come from?
Oh my God.
Oh, the iron come in a nova explosion. It means that amazingly, Allah actually used the stars in an oven and cooked the iron there and sent the iron here and put into the food and then sent to your body. How amazing. In terms of the interconnected.
And also in Quran it is used in Zah.
Yeah, the Quran in Hadith it says that, yes, and Zalna. It says that we actually brought it up because all heavy elements cannot exist in on the planet. It has to come from with a heavy or high level of energy, they say. So again, analytical thinking essentially it is science based on knowledge minus ideology part. Ideology is either explicit or implicit, but against that, basically, we think that's fine. Science look at the mana ismi dimension, so we get that one without really having into ideology for that. Okay, so we filter that, and then we basically, one of the essential things in the analytical thinking. We really want to increase the amazement. Because remember there's one hadith of the Prophet, he makes dua to Allah that he increase his amazement. So again, basically, our objective is to really increase the amazement. Okay. Okay, sure, just right time. So basically, again, without science, let's say you look at the water, what do you understand? But as you get scientific knowledge, and actually you look at the way that Allah creates water, as you study hydrogen and oxygen, and you truly become amazed. As you study the property of water and the property of other fluid, and you see, it's like water is absolute exception. Like normally, once the other fluid gets frozen, it becomes heavier and sink down. Water is frozen, it gets lighter. Amazing. Why? Or because in the rivers, in the water, that actually when it's cold, it becomes like blanket protect those animals living at the bottom. See, now when you study that and you find the hikmah behind that, you say, this is really, how this can happen? While the secular scientists will say, they're very lucky, by luck, because they have to bring the lady luck into the equation to really explain that, because otherwise there is really no explanation for that. So again, this is essential part is really the universe as you study and as science reveal is absolutely amazing place in every way. And actually, the more science reveal that, the more we become amazed with that. So therefore, we have no problem with science. We embrace science fully, and we encourage people to absolutely engage with science. But with one caveat, we say, be aware of the poison inside the science and find a way to remove or filter this poison. So that's what we try to do in analogical. So the analogical one, we try to find the right analogy. So the objective here is not to say which one is better, God's one or human one, because that's not objective. Our objective is that you have an experience of doing something, compare what you do with what Allah is doing that, they can help you to have a better appreciation. Like you look at the camera and you look at the human eyes. You compare and contrast them. You find out the camera is actually was built based on the understanding of the human eyes. And the camera is actually in one way work like a human eyes. Okay, but then we say, let's think about what it takes to build a camera. Oh, you say, I know what it takes because I have experience. You have to have education. You have to have the eyes. You have to have the wheel. You have to have a power to do that. You say, do you think an uneducated people, do you think monkey can make it? A camera? They say, no way, monkey can make a camera? Or do you think that, let's say, the wind can make the camera? Oh, no way. Okay, do you think an uneducated person can make it? Oh, no way. Then tell me what really it takes to make camera. So the purpose behind analogical thinking to actually compare, to say, look, as it takes knowledge, will, and power to make a camera, it takes also knowledge, will, and power to make, let's say, human eyes. But with one differences, as the human eyes is much more complex, that means you need to have much higher level of knowledge and power and will to make that one. That's the thing. So that's what we try to, the reason we use analogy because again is that there are educators, they think that human can only understand in a true sense through analogy. Everything that we know is based on, we learn something new comparing what we know from our experience. So therefore, we use analogy at the very center of our model. Yes?
So, when you said this, I just remembered, so there's a new emerging field, which is called as biomimicry. So basically what people are doing is they are going back to the nature and trying to take some design principles from the nature and they're trying to apply it to build something. For example, there's a famous example of the shape of the bullet train. So when initially the shape of the train was such that when it used to go, it used to create a lot of sound. And then the people who are living around used to get very disturbed because of the high sound, because of high speed. So then they looked at a bird which catches the fish. But the bird cannot make a sound, but otherwise fish will go away. So they looked at that and the beak of the shape of the beak is what then they made the beak of the bullet train. And now when the bullet train goes, the sound is reduced.
Yeah, there are actually many examples of biomimicry.
Yeah.
Biomimicry is one of very, a good area. We do look at it.
Emerging field,
So essentially, but what we try to do is say, the reason that we have human experience is mainly because of what Nursi used, Wahid al-Qiyasi, which means that use your experience and understand how God does work in the universe. So in that case, we always use analogy to say, look at your experience. Do you know how to build a house? Okay? Do you have an experience of that? Now use this experiential knowledge, then look at this planet as a house. Don't you think there must be a builder and maker for this house as well? So again, our analogy work in that way. And again, the Quran is actually not only use analogy, praise the use of analogy. Like, in this ayah it says, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا كَلِمَةً طَيِّبَةٍ كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ. It's like saying, don't you see that how beautiful analogy Allah is using? What is analogy? A good word is like a good tree that the root deep down and branch goes up and gives the fruit with the power of Allah, or Rabb, with the بإذن ربها, which is His permission. So you can see the Quran use not only use it praise the use of the analogy. So that in the Quran you can see, we see two types. One is tamsil and tashbih, the other is the prophetic stories. So we actually look at all this prophetic story as a kind of allegory. An allegory is a form of analogy. So in that case, basically, for social science, we plan to use all allegory type of story based on things instead of analogy. Because social science, you cannot use analogy. There's no man-made things. In that case, we are going to, in social science subjects, we're going to use allegory, either a hypothetical story or the actual story, and then go to comparison from there for the analogical thinking. Like again, as an example, if let's say you have experience of making, let's say, baklava, and you know what you take it. You have a recipe, which means knowledge. You have ingredients. Then you have oven. Then you have a chef that cook them. Now then we say, okay, this is another dessert. That's strawberry. How the strawberry is made? Oh, you look at it. The recipe is in the seed. The ingredients you see is a disgusting dust and animal waste. But then how come the recipe and the disgusting dust and animal waste can turn into the delicious dessert? So you say, go and invite any chef in the world to use all of their power to see whether to make such dessert. Okay? So in that case, basically, the analogy here is both dessert or not? For sure, yes. So and how are they made? And you know one of them from your experience. Then now use your experiential knowledge and reflect on other dessert, and then appreciate that there must be someone who is behind that as well. So again, like let's say, those things, you have vinegar plus sand. If you add them and you get chocolate cake, you'll be shocked. But now we get the soil and animal waste, you add water and you get strawberry, you're not shocked. Why? Oh, it's because that's happening all the time. But if you start to actually every time add the vinegar to the sand and get the chocolate cake, you're gonna somehow think, oh, that's normal as well. That's just, this can happen as well. So again, it's really, again, water example we discussed before, 2 hydrogen, 2 oxygen, so how you get the water. So the third dimension is critical thinking. So the critical thinking, so again, is the La ilaha part in terms of how we can remove basically the cause and nature and chance to be the source. So again, our hero is the Prophet Ibrahim. Okay, so in a way, let's say this is the ingredients, this is the cake. So you try to have them to think. You say, what is the source of this cake? Can it be from the ingredients? Can it happen by itself? So can it really, just the wind can come and push them around and make this cake? So, or, in a sense that basically, or if you, let's say, put all these ingredients and then put the recipe next to it, can the recipe just put the ingredient together and make the cake? No. So in that case, basically, the whole idea here to have them to engage in critical thinking and to say that it's really, this cannot happen by itself and it has to be someone who will do that. So the critical thinking in that way, in our book example, I will briefly show it to you. We break it down, the questioning for nature, chance, and material cause, and question them and to see how you can eliminate that. And the meditative thinking, so again, we try to connect that as illallah part of the tawheed. So in this case, we try to really see how everything's connected to each other and how everything's in a way that caring about each other.
Until meditative thinking, we are doing the la ilaha part.
Exactly.
By critical thinking, analytical thinking, analogical thinking.
Yes.
And then here we are accepting the illallah part.
Yes.
All the dimensions are already eliminated.
The meditative thinking, you come to illallah, but when you come to illallah, you're not just saying, since there is la ilaha, there has to be illallah. You have to make case for illallah as well. How we do that? We do it in 2 ways again. We point to interconnectivity in terms of needing others, which means ajz, that you can't do yourself. You need you need the whole universe to make an apple. So that means the apple is not coming from an apple tree. And also in terms of helping the other and why you care about others, why everyone cares about others. That means someone who is behind that caring about everything. So in 2 ways, we try to make the case. So then meditative thinking. And then what we do, once we make this connection, we say, oh, that is God. And then now we say, let's try to see what the God is telling you in that. So what is the message for you? So that is, we connect everything to the divine names. So in meditative thinking, whatever you study, let's say you study tree, or which name you can read in the tree, or you read the name of Al-Awwal, Al-Akhir, Al-Zahir, Al-Batin, Al-Alim, Al-Qadir, Al-Hakim. You can read endless names. But based on the emphasis on every subject we teach and we provide for kids, we try to have at least 4 or 5 names. That is the whole purpose. You study them. Now, how would you connect to the divine names? You connect to the Creator, then you connect to the divine name. Yes?
So, like, actually, we are, by observing the universe, we are going to the deductions of names and attributions of a wajib God, and like obligatory God. A God has to be there, a creator has to be there, and that kind of manifestations and these kind of names that he has to have, right?
Yes.
But in this point, our mind cannot go beyond, and then we need revelation. Okay, that God has to speak with me to be able to give my instructions and my purpose and my needs and my prayers, like all the other stuff that I cannot know by my mind. I have to take a revelation. Is it so?
Yeah. In a meditative thinking, that's the place we can bring ayah and hadith. That means the revelation come after that. Okay? So, and then basically the revelation come after that, then you get the moral thinking after that. So therefore, we bring the revelation at the end of meditative thinking and also at the beginning for the moral thinking as well. But before that, we don't bring any ayah and hadith on that one. Okay? So, and again, it's the whole point is to really see how you can get the holistic perspective of the reality. And particularly, you need the revelation because you cannot see the full elephant. You cannot see the entire reality. So, and again, the interconnectivity, as we mentioned, the whole point is that when we talk about, we say, it's not that a tree give you an apple, it's the entire universe work like a tree, and you get an apple from the tree of the universe. So that's one of the things that we try to emphasize in this regard. The water, again, in everything that we do. Finally, the moral thinking is the stage in which that now you make connection, you try to see how you can appreciate. Okay? So the appreciation is basically, we use the Nusi's first word things, we call zikr, fikr, shikr. Okay? So, and we do explicitly in this stage, basically, let's say the water. So when you understand, this water is extremely valuable. And this water is actually directly come from God. And God gave me this water because He really cares about me. And He created this water for me. Then now actually it's become very, let's say, normal for me to offer my appreciation. To say thank you to Him. So in this case, the appreciation should come after understanding of the creation and the value of creation. So again, this is a guy, he's an atheist, physics professor. He gave a speech and he says that there are moral lessons that he learned in physics as an atheist person, because when you study the universe, you see there are some moral lessons. We said if an atheist can study the universe, derive moral lessons, for sure that believer could derive many lessons. Like if you go, let's say, read Surah Al-Rahman, it talks about the mizan in the universe, then it will say, be justice in your, in your life as well. So you can see that means we can look at the universe, derive some moral lessons in terms of how to be that. So there are many examples of that, but I will just show you one example. Let's see if I can. There's one very recent things that we did. I will show you how it really worked in practice. So this is one subjects, I think this is which for the low grade students that prepare based on the 5D. I will just show you how we did that. This is about the ends. So this is one example on the ends. So I think this is for first grade. So you have the beginning learning outcomes. That the first step for the lower grade, we don't call analytical thinking because it's difficult for them. We call explore steps. So we call first steps, that's the first dimension, analytical dimension, we call explore. So you see here there's information about basically scientific information. And then there's a fascinating fact. We provide them separately to really attract their attention about, let's say, ants. And then there's a YouTube video, put it there. Then we move to the second steps. So then we do comparisons. Let's say here, analogy. Ants is compared to the cranes in terms of lifting. They are lifting something and that. You see crawler cranes. So there's comparison between them. You can see here. So there's analogy. and there's YouTube videos on this as well. Then the third step, the second step we call compare. We don't call it analogical thinking. Why? Because kids do not understand analogy. We call it a compare step. And then the third step, so we call it question. We don't call it critical thinking. So you questioning. So in that case, again, we specify nature, chance. How would you, again, some people might think that nature creates ants. How we know that crawler cranes are built by people with knowledge and power to design and assemble them. Similarly, ants are amazing creatures with strength, teamwork, and organized colonies that need a maker with knowledge and power to create them. So again, you can see, you use analogy, chance. Some people might think that ants were created by chance. Were crawler cranes made by chance? It's hard to believe that amazing ants could be made by just chance. So, and then we put some thinking questions, this is still part of the critical thinking. And then the fourth step is connect. So in terms of the connection and to see how the ants is connected to everything, how they're basically, they call, see that either the universe is automatically aware of ants, see it's basically how they are connected to each other and everything somehow help the ants to really survive. And then again, now we connect to God, and then you can see here, it's what do ants tell us about Allah in terms of the name. So now we see the name Al-Khaliq, Al-Musawwir, Al-Rahman, Al-Hakim. So you directly learn those, derive those from that, and then appreciate. So let's imagine what will happen if there were no ants. So we try to see, and then we put explicit dhikr, fikr, shukr. It's part of this appreciate stage. And then we derive the character lessons, like hard work. The answers really give us a very good lesson in being hardworking and being teamworking, like 2 lessons. This is for very low grade. So we then improve 4 or 5 lessons, depends on that.
This is the textbook.
Yeah, this is for the, I think, grade 1. This is the part of the work on that. So then you see here, then we connect to the Quran. So we bring the Quran here, the ayah here, the Surah An-Naml, and we bring the hadith here at the end, connect to that. And then the second part, now we put activities that for them, how, for each dimension, there are certain activities that kids can do that. You can see basically, there are certain activity in class activity, discussion questions, thinking questions, and again, to see how they connect the name, an Arabic name of Allah, to the meaning of that, to see whether they really get those names. So there's activity part, and then to have appreciate part, and again, there is a game also. I think it's part of the appreciate part. It's taught that as well. So that is basically, so every topic, so we'll have like around 14 topics for every grade level. We'll prepare in this way. So essentially, the teachers are supposed to get this ready material as they teach a subject. We went through the British curriculum and American curriculum, and I think the other one we get from South Africa. So we try to find the common themes, the common subjects, and we choose the topic for grade level based on the common subjects. And we prepare material now, it's ready for kindergarten and grade 6. So for science subjects.
14 topics.
14 topics. For every grade level, you have 14 topics like this with all materials and everything, including those YouTube things that we find are relevant. We integrate into that one. So they
for example, ant is one topic. Right?
Yeah, ant is one topic.
And also we just started to teach this model to the trainers and educators from different countries, from different backgrounds, to be able for them to teach how to teach all these to their students or in their curriculums actually. So for example, this year, inshallah, we are going to do our first program with Professor Necati and Professor Alfazan and Professor Colin from UK. And next week, we're going to start. So if you're interested in that, or you have some friends like educators and trainers, you can let them know about our inshallah second program, which is going to be next year.
Inshallah. So the moral thinking is this. What I learned?
Yeah, the moral thinking is zikr, fikr, shukr, and the character lessons. That's both part of the moral thinking. Because remember here that basically this is the moral thinking. So you have it here first. So zikr means remembering Allah whenever we see ants working hard to collect food, because He is the one who creates and employs ants.
Yeah.
So fikr means reflecting on amazing body, life, skills, and tasks given to ants by their maker. And then shukr means thanking Allah for such tireless and tiny workers. He's the one who created employment. So basically, again, so we want them to really go through this process then, and also the character lessons. What do we learn from them? What does it tell us? How can we become better human after we study ants? Oh, they're really hardworking. They never stop working. That means we should be hardworking as well. They work as a team. They have amazing, team working. Oh, that means we can actually learn.
This is grade 1.
Yeah, this is, I think, grade 1. This is grade 1. This is grade 1.
So this is based on my experience because I'm from Malaysia. It's like if we're teaching science, you are scientist background. We have the science background. How about someone like me, like from social science? I'm not ustada neither. I mean, of course, I need to have my own study as well about the Quran, Hadith, before I can deliver this. How the judge, I mean, not the judgment. Of course, the university will say, you are not ustada, you don't teach this. You don't say this. You are not qualified for this. Because you don't have any sijil, Rabi Thanawi, or anything like that for you to qualify you to teach. And then the scientists, especially the scientists, they don't have this Quranic background. How can we?
I think that's why we think it's really essential to provide a good training to teachers. You can't do it without it. So in other words, in our model, we envision to really have the 6 module based on teacher training. And the book I shared with you that essentially prepare for this purpose. So, and then have the assessment and certified teacher as in this case, 5D thinking teachers. So that if you go through that and if you get that, we think that, we technically can certify you. And
we also have another category, is Ustad, but they don't do this. They just teach us hadith or Quran, anything in Quran, but don't relate it to the universe. So you can see these very extreme
but that's
categories.
why when we do this one, actually we were told that look, you don't need this only for science teacher, you need those for Islamic studies as well. They said so because you have to really have a unified voice, and we're not gonna bring this to science only. We're gonna take this to the Islamic studies as well. So it has to be as a model. So we were planning to actually apply this to the other subject area as well, not only science, including Islamic studies. We did actually prepare some exemplary workbook with the 10 topics for Islamic studies. How would you teach the essential Islamic subjects based on the 5D thinking model, rather than preach them and have them to memorize and impose on them? So in other words, how would you teach the prayer? How would you teach against let's say certain ritual that you do, Bismillah, Zikr, all. So we try to actually implement the 5T on this as well. So therefore, again, but we think the essential is really first to have the material, to have the model, then you have to have very good teacher training, because otherwise you cannot be done.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
One sample of this can you send to us?
Yeah, we can, inshallah. No, in the book I shared with you, there are 3 samples actually.
Okay, like this?
Yeah, but it's not ready as the image, but it's the text is there all.
Okay.
All the content is there, just the design is not there.
One with design?
The 3 subject is mentioned, there's an example there.
One with the design, is it possible?
Yeah, we can.
For example, if I want to use this in my teaching, for example, do I need to acknowledge or put anything for reference at this 5D thinking by?
No, we're going to put it everywhere, because not for the egotistic purpose, but for the because that's the way to really know as well. And also, we will try to come up either with subscription model or the selling that, because we're not going to exploit, but we really need to have some sort of support to sustain that and to expand the team. So we will we try to see, we might put some free available use, but then we can say, and then you need to buy or you need to subscribe to the model. Then you can use it, because, we need to, if we want to expand and be more professional, we really have to, this is the law of Allah, we have to move toward the fee-based type without really exploiting anyone. So because this is services, and if we're going to ask people to go and work full-time, so we have to really support them. And how we're going to support them, we have to really have those who use it to pay for it. So we will go with the school, try to, or inshallah, or let's say dua and dream, to have
That's welcome.
5D schools. So they embrace the model like a Montessori school. Remember Montessori school?
Montessori, yes.
This is basically a Montessori school with the Malay Hafi approach. But we were really planning to. We think that we can, really have the schools to subscribe to the model, and then we will keep producing the content and give it to them as we produce. So, and we're gonna start inshallah this fall right away. We are ready with 6 books now, or 7 books actually, kindergarten to grade 6. So it will be ready. In summer we'll start with, we did piloting with 3 schools. So UK, South Africa, and I think the other one was in India or Pakistan, 3 schools. So, but we want to actually move all those. There are some schools that are ready to do that, and those teachers are coming next week. Most of them are coming to this program to learn to see how they're going to go and implement.
Yes.
We select them as like those individuals who are in charge of the school, not just the teacher, so that they can go and actually have their school to adopt the model.
So you guys can apply for next year and the
Yeah, I think already have, right? Yeah. We already have how many? 250 million people for us waiting, right? In India. So no problem.
Yes, Prof, I think this is very timely for our school because we have our existing, 6 years already existing school with this Madrasat Zahara,
Philippines.
a school of religious and modern science. It's an integrated school. Alhamdulillah, we are really looking for a material, and I think this is the best for to be applied in our school. And this is in the Philippines.
But that's why I think the key part here is that, like, particularly those of you in education, there are 2 things we really expect. First of all, this is for personal part, because actually anyone who attend our program, they will say, I try to implement this in my life and for my kids and for my family first and foremost, because we need to look at ourselves, first. The second thing is that we expect that basically, if you're in education, try to see how we can collaborate, how we can work.
Yeah.
And the third one, we expect that if you really want to contribute, be part of the team, start to work with us as a volunteer. But as we expand, for sure, we think there is really the sky is the limit. There are thousands of Islamic schools. There is no one has any real practical model to use it. And I believe if we come up with something, and if they start to see, I think it's not a problem at all.
Does the school need to be Islamic or even any school?
Yes, actually, this one is for Islamic school,
Because you were
but
saying
we think that we can have different version, and the other version that we can, because we think is really, I think Edwin can tell us, we really think that this very same concept, if we remove Allah and put God, and do not mention any in the Quran and ayat hadith, we think that can be perfectly fine with the people of other faiths as well. We really think it could be. So therefore, we're perfectly fine if, let's say, we have some Christian schools or some Jewish school or some, I don't know, people of any faith, because this is a question of God. How could you bring it that? So we think they can really benefit. So therefore, our initial works, we never actually use Allah, because we think the naming doesn't. When Islam came, Allah was the word they were using, and they didn't change the name. They changed the content behind that, because it's not like, it doesn't matter you're gonna call Allah or God. Really, we don't think it really does matter. So the key part: what do you mean when you say Allah? What do you mean when you say God? So, because our whole subject is to reconnect creation with Creator. How you call Creator, it's not our business. We're not in that part. We think the essential problem that creation is separated from Creator, we try to see how we can reconnect that. So we think that if we use more, let's say, neutral language, the people of other faith might benefit as well. What do you think? Do you think that they might see some things here?
I think you've got an emerging market in Florida.
Florida, right? I don't know. It's Florida along Texas as well, maybe, right?
Politically correct words in a certain way.
No, again, but what I mean that basically, as long as if you're inclusive, which is basically we're not really. It's not like you're hiding. You have second intention.
Yeah.
We think we have the common cause. We think the problem, the disease that we have is the exact same disease. So, and therefore, I think the people of faith, they can really unite it with each other and benefit from each other. That's really what we think is the case.
Yeah, I think one of the approach we have to take also, I like in my country, rather than bringing it directly to the school system and linking it to the academic classes, maybe like once a week you ask the principal or so to have a 5D special class, separate from the academic or so. So you can gradually introduce it before you can move to the level of where you can link it now to the other classes. So like if they have the maths and English and science and students for the week, you ask them for a period and you could like the same topic here, teach it as a 5D thinking topic, right? So that to introduce them to this whole concept of 5D thinking. And then subsequently, as the time move on now, then you're going to incorporate it, integrate it with the actual school curriculum.
Yeah. There are various different ways to implement. Really, the delivery and marketing part, we recently hired a person who is an expert and is a graduate of marketing from UK, and she went through our certificate program. We hire her now 30 hours per week, almost full time, and it's her job to look how we can do the market and social media part. So we think that part is not that difficult. We have to follow the professional way. But we think the most difficult part to generate the content.
Yes.
To come up with a good model, to be open-minded, to gather the input, to work to see how you can improve it. So the delivery part, we think we can find it. There are different ways you can implement it. Partial, gradual, fully, we should be open to all of them. And we think we can look at those.
Then just to, like, as parentheses, like, to avoid any kind of misunderstanding, like, when you say that, I'm sure you also mean that, like, and when we talk about the kind of like, we don't mention the name of God at the beginning, but, we are making them to think about God at the deduction. It's not like you can deduct any God that you want, your God, my God, her God, something like that, because Allah is one. So the thing is just at the end of the point, like, in the level of tahqiq or in the way our minds can be convinced that Allah is one. Right?
Yeah, again, I think in our model, we really try to take the readers to God, to the source beyond the universe. Now, what is the attribute of the source and nature of source? I think then we can let the different tradition or different religion describe as they like. We don't see any problem with that. But for Islamic one, obviously it's very clear what we mean by God, and we become very clear. We link to the divine names, and actually we take to the Quran and Hadith. But we think that we can remove this part, and until that, it can be perfectly fine for people of other faith as well. Now, if let's say your concern is that, okay, they're gonna learn and they become, let's say more religious in their faith, let it be. Because we're not, our problem is not like to really, because our problem is that are we really thinking and defining the source? To define the source, how it looks like, that's not really our jobs. That's not our problem. This is not the theology subject. We're not engaging in theological discussion on that one. Our whole concern is to really bring God into the classroom, to say that you cannot understand the existence without the Creator. And how you're going to go beyond that, I think as a Muslims, you can link the divine names, link the hadith, and you can link to your daily life and everything. It can work very well. Therefore, we decided to really do this version because we find out the neutral one for Muslim is not that much attractive. They really want to see the flavor that directly come from the Quran and the Sunnah. So therefore we thought the common denominator for all Muslims is Quran and Sunnah. Okay, we said let's go and connect to the Quran and Sunnah and then present it to the Muslim in that way. But for non-Muslims who believes in the concept of God but have a different understanding of God, we don't have any problem, because our problem is that first people that are completely rejecting God. Let's them to find God, and then let's them then after that to see which God.
Area of focus.
Yeah, exactly. It's not our area of focus. This is not our area of focus. We really think that we have a common ground. Until then, beyond that, I think there's nothing wrong to say, look, this is how Muslim understand that. This is how Christian understand that. This is how Jew understand that. I really don't see there is any problem that you can explain yours, they can explain theirs. Let people to decide. Because after all, it's their choice.
I don't totally agree with you in this part, but anyways.
May I say something? Yeah, because what I think is you are trying to give back the tools for the people in order to reach to what is the reality of creation, and then from there and going on, like they will will be guided to what is really, who is the real creator. Like I think everybody, atheist, non-believer, different religion, they all believe in there's somebody who created us, but then they covered it with these materialistic things. And I think what you are doing is just like removing the dust and clearing what's around it in order to go back to ourselves and see that.
And also, I don't know, Edmund might know, or truly knows much better. I really find, a lot of the description of the attribute of God in Christianity and Judaism, besides, again, the concept of Trinity, is obviously it's really is something that, but many other things you'll find is really, you have difficulty to know whether it's the Christians or Muslims wrote that one. Because it's not, does God have a power? How much power it has? Well, I think all of them, have, but so does God has a knowledge? How much knowledge he has? Is he good or bad, God? Or sort of,
yeah, but basically the concept from the very concept of God in Christianity and Islam is not the same, obviously, like that's what I mean, like when you talk about any God that you can think of, it's not a problem for us. Actually, it's like a problem of faith from the foundation, from the within. But the thing that would be sad for me, like, is that the area of focus that we are working with. But coming from the faith part, of course, it's not the thing that I accept that concept of God, obviously, because that makes me understand, isn't it?
No, but again, we're not saying that really all religions are equal. So it's very clear if you study Islam and Christianity, the main differences is their understanding of the attribute of God, or the very nature of God. Okay, that's very obvious. But my point is that if you really look at Christianity, Islam, Judaism, particularly Abrahamic religion, and even others, you find the whole idea that they all agree there must be a source beyond the universe who is beyond. That is the part that materialists completely reject. So in our model, we say, let's go to the source and let's make the case for the source. But now, what is really what are the attributes of the source? What is the true, let's say, nature of the source? I think they all have their own way, and if that's in the class, you can present all and have people to make their mind, whatever. But this is not part of our subject.
I see.
So our subject is that we say, okay, we're going to prepare one version for Muslims, and we go based on the Muslim understanding of God and link to them. And we're going to prepare one version for the people of other faiths with the general concept of God. That's all. And we'll leave it there. And we really don't mind if, let's say, Christian, Jews, Buddhists go and use it then. Why? Because they will come from the materialism toward the source. So they will have such idea, and that there must be someone who really give us some moral lesson. And that is, we think that if your concern is like, now you're going to make, let's say, people of other faith to be more stronger in their faith, they're not going to come to Islam. I think that's not the way we think that it can come Islam. If you think,
it's not our part.
So because our job here is in the sense that to understand that we, as the people of faith, all are facing existential issues to the level that people, like in Europe, more than 50% of people define themselves as an atheist now, which means that the religion is completely out of the question now for most people. So we try to see how we can re-establish the link. That's our primary job. The other one, I think, is more theological one, and so let the other scholars to really debate on that one.
And to couple that with, now that has reached the education system.
Mm-hmm.
Now that has corrupted the curriculum also, and young children don't have access to good quality curriculum. Mm-hmm. So that can also be the part of the problem that you mentioned.
And that's what we got asked. You see, beginning God in the concept also. Some of these schools, even at the primary level, have violence and breakdown of family values and so on. And I think such training, which is very timely also, if you can get children to understand the importance of their faith of God, whether with a religion, can help to get children to come back to the basics in terms of morality and respect and things like that.
Okay, I think we have to end it here. So I think the food is ready now. It's the time to practice and go and be thankful for that. Because for those who are gonna catch the ship, I think it's a 9. What was the return? It's 9:15 or 9:45? 15, right?
9:15.
9:15. So which means we have hour and a half. To do everything.
9:45.
9:45. Yeah, good. 9:45 is good. So it's basically we're gonna go and eat, inshallah. Then we come and pray, and then after that, no, I'm not coming. I come tomorrow.
Also, whoever came with you has to
Okay, go with the So meanwhile, okay, just one last thing. So I have actually my, I would say 2 families, the primary family and the secondary one both here. The primary is that's, biological mom and dad. So obviously we all know how valuable they are. I invite them as well to have a dinner with us. They don't know, English, obviously. I also invite my uncle and his wife because they are kind of second parents for me. Because when I actually run away from the village, I went and stayed with them 3 years. They actually kindly provide all the support to us. So I invited them as well to really come and join us for dinner. So inshallah, so I want you, and also, the food is actually the son of uncle. He is an ask him. I said we're gonna have such guests, and he completely took the responsibility and prepared everything, and with some other youth, so they are working that, and it's ready now. We can inshallah go and enjoy and make dua for them inshallah.